How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Baron's Guide to Everything. Kind of a filler episode this week, if I'm being honest, but I wanted to share my thoughts about this particular Disney short since it first came out 10 years ago? Wow. Okay. Anyway, this short is probably my favorite, and it's come back up again for me recently while I was doing research for my video about the movie Free Guy, which will be out at some point eventually. There are a few instances in that film where they used the score for this one, and while I don't begrudge the manner in which it was used, it really just made me want to watch the original. So I did. And it hit me just as hard, so we're going to talk about it. As usual, I'm not claiming this to be anything more than a conversation, but I will say that it is one of the best metaphors for the experience of searching for romantic love ever shown on screen. Fuck you, fight me. Is that bias? No. Not at all. In fact, I had some mathematicians crunch the numbers, and they told me it was 102% true with a 2% margin of error. So, math. But is it a perfect metaphor? No, not at all. It's actually a little messy, but then again, so is love. The film opens, and we're introduced to our two leads, both professional, or at least dressed in that aesthetic, and there's already a bit of chemistry. Happenstance causes her to leave an impression, both literally and figuratively, before life pulls her away. Right out the gate, we have the two most common attitudes towards romance being represented. Those actively longing for it, and those who have it on the farthest back burner. In my experience, when you're single, you tend to fall into one of those two camps, hoping and waiting for someone to show up and possibly reignite the spark inside of you, or, that sounds nice, but I've got stuff to do. I don't think either camp is inherently better or worse. I think both can be comfortable, and both can be miserable. Personally, if you want to keep your sanity, I would tell you to move back and forth between the camps. Spend too much time in one and you risk becoming needy, desperate, and clingy. Too much time in the other and you forget how to people or miss out on a number of opportunities. So, our romantic gets to work and he's still hanging on to that first impression. This is what he thinks, what we all think, love is meant to be. Let's be honest, we all have different ideas, different ways of communicating, and even symbols aren't universal. Feel free to look into the Navajo whirling log when you get a chance. But even though it's a very vivid idea, it's the only thing in color, it's also fragile and precious, and he doesn't want to risk losing it. So he tries to form a connection with something that's mostly the same, but not completely. He's too scared to completely risk it, so to speak. A lot of us are. From here on in, every paper airplane represents a so-called failed relationship. I have some qualms using the word failed because I feel like if you learn something from it, then it wasn't a failure, it just ran its course, and I don't think there's anything wrong with relationships that run their course. I think they're every bit as valuable as the ones that last a lifetime. In this case, the first one doesn't last as long as he would have hoped. The next runs into an impassable obstacle. The one after was shut down by his career or livelihood. Then there's the one that was a complete accident. I like this one because there's lots of ways it can be interpreted. The one that almost goes the distance, the one that was stopped by an apparent act of God, and then he gets to a point where he's tried literally everything else, and the people around him are all a little bit worried, but also not willing to enable him. With nothing left to lose, he takes all the lessons the previous planes taught him, applies them, and gets ready to try one last time. But something happens. This is often true for us too. Maybe you weren't as ready as you thought. Maybe you got cold feet because, well, you were so sure about all those other times, what makes this time any different? Then life or the people around you try to get you to settle, give up, relegate yourself to the mundane. You have to be a little bit crazy for the next part. You have to be ready to lose. Because there's a good chance that you will. You'll have your heart broken, even after risking it all. And all you'll be left with is that original idea, that impression, something you might even resent now. And in a fit of frustration, you might think to yourself, never again. You'll give up on relationships and toss them out. But if you're lucky, all those previous experiences, those memories and lessons won't let you give up. They'll come back and practically force you to confront the unknown and risk it all again. Unless you happen to be in the back burner camp when the magic happens. Maybe you know you could have had something with someone, but it just wasn't a priority. You might even look back at that potential with a hint of regret. And while you're busy focusing on other things, no judgment by the way, you've missed some rather obvious signs from potential partners all around you. Again, there's nothing wrong with living your life this way. It just takes nothing short of a miracle to pull you out of it. But again, if you're lucky, stupidly, unfathomably lucky, a miracle might be exactly what you get. You'll be living your life, content, until someone's emotions eventually reach you. There it is again, you'll think. That chance you never thought you'd see again. Maybe you noticed it right away, maybe it had to be spelled out for you. But once it's caught your attention, you're not letting it out of your sight. No matter how many flights of stairs or trains you have to catch, you'll chase it. You'll chase it to its logical conclusion. And while most love stories end around this point, relish the fact that it's actually the beginning of something. That's it for me today. Happy anniversary, Veronica.